distinguished guest, the Honorable Anna Gomez.
I took the long way, I just realized. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Because I realize this is pointing. Wait, you want me to take it down? Okay. I'm slightly shorter. So, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be back at the Media Institute. I believe I spoke at one of these lunches in 2009, but it was so long ago that it's not even listed on the Media Institute website for me to confirm it. Considering the timing, however, I'm 90% sure I was talking about the digital television transition. And I can assure you that our conversation today will be different. I really appreciate the range of topics that the Media Institute covers, as it takes on the full breadth of the cross-disciplinary industry in which we all work. As a young lawyer, new to the FCC, just a few years ago, the range of matters the Commission had before it was awe-inspiring. FCC commissioners have long been expected to bring expertise to matters across a range of topics that did not always seem obviously related. The Commission authorized the first communications satellite launch of Telstar 1 in 1962. Since then, the agency has implemented the breakup of AT&T, invented the process for auctioning spectrum that remains the gold standard in the world, continues to participate internationally at the International Telecommunication Union, and ensures that broadcasters serve the public interest. That means that an FCC commissioner needs to develop a deep understanding of technology, competition policy, international relations, and First Amendment law. A Renaissance lawyer, so to speak. So as a result of hard work, persistence, and some luck, I've had the privilege of working on transformational rulemakings at the Commission, standing up the First Responder Network Authority, representing the interests of some of the country's largest and most innovative corporations, and representing the U.S. in international spectrum negotiations. And the cool thing about being a commissioner is that my area of expertise has now been expanded to encompass the media space. And I am bringing my varied history to consider these issues that are critical in this time of history. So today I'd like to focus on news and how I approach it. I've always been an avid consumer of news. My sources of content, however, have changed dramatically over the years. When I was young, I got my news listening to the radio and watching television. As a teenager, believe it or not, I got much of my news from MTV. Seriously, Kurt Loder was Walter Cronkite to a lot of my generation. Unfathomable in today's world. MTV once covered events such as a town hall with President Bill Clinton, the death of Kurt Cobain, and the fall of the Berlin Wall. Later on, I started to read print newspapers regularly. And now that I'm 30 plus, I consume news on the radio, on television, through newspapers, though mostly in digital form now, in addition to listening to journalism on podcasts. Many of us, now 30 plus, lament that younger generations are consuming news and media in new and kind of suspicious ways. Instagram Reels, TikToks, YouTube Shorts, and more. I see this, and I am not at all surprised that young people want to be both entertained and informed. They always have, and they always will. And they are simply not entertained by the same things that we were. That is why our media landscape continues to evolve over time. One thing does stand out clearly about the era of news media we are in now. We cannot blindly trust the information that we consume. When Walter Cronkite said, "That's the way it is," that's the way it was. The news was the news, and very few felt the need to question it. But times have changed. I know I'm not breaking news when I say there is a lack of trust in journalism today. And really, this is not new. A lesson from history clues us into the power of biased or unreliable reporting. In 1898, when the U.S. battleship the Maine sunk in Havana Harbor, newspaper publishers took the reins. They employed hyperbole and played on the emotions of their audience in their reporting. Though the Maine was sunk by a mine explosion in the harbor, journalists Hearst and Pulitzer published rumors that the incident was a Spanish plot to sink the ship. We certainly can't blame this reporting alone for the anti-Spanish sentiments in the United States or the start of the Spanish-American War, but biased reporting in this case set the tone for the events that would follow and the public's impression of the war. That is why localism, competition, and diversity are the Commission's bedrock principles of media ownership. Having a variety of diverse voices in each community is key to the public interest. And while placing our collective trust in the hands of a homogeneous few may have started the mistrust in news and information, changes in technology have exacerbated them. Serious concerns about dis or misinformation today go further with the help of technological advancements. Artificial intelligence and its products, such as deep fakes and voice cloning, have widened the reach of misinformation. While consuming media has always required an understanding of context and tone, discerning misinformation, especially when it is presented in hyper-realistic ways, proves to be far more difficult today than discerning satire or comedy on The Daily Show, which delivered news in an entertaining and informative way to millennials. A couple of weeks ago, artificial intelligence voice cloning was used to impersonate President Joe Biden in an attempt to influence a federal election primary. This is serious. Misinformation in this form poses a threat to our democracy. And I am proud of the work that the FCC is doing to address the harms of artificial intelligence as they relate to robocalls and robotexts. 2 weeks ago, we issued a declaratory ruling clarifying that calls made with AI-generated voices without prior consent are illegal. This is an important step towards holding bad actors accountable and limiting the spread of false information by seemingly trustworthy voices. Misinformation also poses dangers to public safety. Earlier this month, the New York Times published a story titled, "When the Storm Online is Worse Than the One Outside." It detailed an incident in which an emergency preparedness enthusiast without experience in meteorology posted on social media about a potential #ARC storm headed for California. Despite the lack of scientific evidence to support severe or catastrophic flooding across the state, those on social media continue to express worry about the storm. Stories like this one are amplified on social media, motivated by the fear and panic they instill. And what if this story had been to downplay a significant storm? When it comes to public safety, we cannot afford to have untrustworthy sources clouding our view of reality. Concern about dis or misinformation is one of the top media issues raised to me in my role as commissioner. And it is one where, frankly, regulatory options are limited, as they should be. The commission is not in the business of regulating content. The criticality of the First Amendment to democracy cannot be overstated. Let me say this again to make sure I'm crystal clear. I have zero interest in regulating what goes on in the newsroom. Our democracy needs a press free from interference from regulators like myself. I approach this issue as both an FCC commissioner and a concerned citizen. I've had the benefit of 30 years of experience working in technology, media, and telecom law and policy, and I've had a lifetime of appreciating the evolution of news media as a consumer. I now have the opportunity to combine my policy expertise with my personal experience to contribute to the thought leadership in this space. What a gift. My thinking continues to evolve, but I see my role at this time as focusing on consumer education. What that means is using my platform as an FCC commissioner to amplify the many and varied efforts of others, because we, the collective we, need to meet people where they are. Not everyone consumes media in the same way, and not everyone views the media that they consume in the same way. I think giving consumers a toolkit for understanding and consuming media is both powerful and necessary. I have been heartened by initiatives that I've come across that are aimed at helping people discern whether content is reliable, and I want to highlight a few. The first is watermarking. Watermarking can be a helpful tool to label content that has been generated or altered by artificial intelligence. This is so on point today. With content on social media being shared and reshared quickly and often without a second thought, it is critical that we have indicators informing us when the content we are viewing is not entirely organic. Adobe has been a leader in this space, setting their goal for watermarks to be the ultimate signal of transparency in digital content. The second is preserving content authenticity. The Content Authenticity Initiative is a group of content creators, journalists, activists, and leaders working to address misinformation by adding a layer of tamper-evident provenance to their digital content. Their work aims to provide consumers with a traceable history of the alterations made to an original piece of content. The third is dis- and misinformation education. In the same way that taking an art appreciation class can help people better engage with the art they consume, I believe that media literacy efforts will help people better engage with the online media they consume. Productive engagement requires education. MediaWise and Noticias Telemundo, for example, have developed a course to educate on radio misinformation, biases in the media, confirmation bias, identifying trustworthy sources, and how graphics can be misleading. They have partnered with Pointer, a nonprofit media institute and newsroom that provides fact-checking, media literacy, and journalism ethics training to citizens and journalists. These educational resources are, I'm very happy to say, also offered to Spanish speakers and available through a WhatsApp course. These are just some of the tools that I've come across that I hope will be helpful to consumers that are navigating an increasingly confusing online environment. At the end of the day, real discernment skills should transcend the type of media being consumed. People should be able to carry these skills and tools that they acquire as they continue to navigate the changing media landscape. So how do I amplify this message? I do it by taking opportunities to speak, such as this one, to highlight what I know and to encourage industry insiders such as yourselves to educate me about your efforts. I also work to spread the knowledge when it seems relevant. For example, last week I had the great honor of being on a panel with Edward James Olmos, the legendary actor and founder of the Latino Film Institute, a nonprofit organization dedicated to creating infrastructure for equity, diversity, and excellence for the Latino community in the entertainment industry that is investing in youth media education. I took the opportunity to connect him with leaders in the media literacy space. While it was a small step, I hope that the impacts will be far-reaching. And I'm always looking for ways to do more. So please join me in spreading the word about these technologies and education efforts, and reach out to my office if you have other ideas for how we can help educate and empower consumers. And thank you again for having me today.
Thank you, Commissioner. I want to take a few questions.
Sure.
Questions in the far corner over there.
Far corner.
My name is Corey. I'm a reporter with Broadband Practice. I wanted to get your thoughts on OpenAI just rolled out a new tool the other day. You're probably familiar with it now. It's called Sora. Where
The video.
Yeah, it's like a 60-second video where you put like a prompt in and it gives you like a realistic video. How worried are you guys about that in terms of like accelerating this information? Because it kind of feels like technology is moving so fast. It's moving way faster than it can be regulated. So these things are like evolving so quickly and people are not, like it seems like I don't really know how you're going to be able to put like up the guardrails so like people won't fall for this information when so much of it looks realistic and so easy to create.
Yeah. It's pretty stunning. I have to admit, I haven't myself tried to type in puppy dogs playing in the snow, which I think was one of the examples. But it is really incredible how quickly this seems to be developing. It feels like technology is in hyperdrive right now. And I've always thought that throughout my career, but it feels like it's just accelerating more and more and more quickly. And I think that's the point that I'm trying to make, is we need to be able to, and by the way, I don't think the FCC has a role in regulating videos made using AI. I don't think. I guess I could be corrected. Maybe one of the people here who knows media law can help me with that. But nonetheless, I think this is why we need to be so vigilant and to make sure that these incredible technological advancements that could really do a lot of good aren't used to be harmful or for harmful purposes. Monty?
Yeah, you mentioned that you're using your platform to spread information about media literacy. Does the FCC have an official role that they could do that? Like you said, you don't want them regulating newsrooms, but is there some kind of middle ground the FCC could do?
Well, I think all of us can help with this effort. But other than that, I'm not sure
You're
on
not
something.
going to issue an NPRM on this?
I'm unaware of any plans to do so.
Just check.
I told you I wasn't going to make use of that.
You did say that.
Any other questions?
If I could talk a little bit about, we're talking about media literacy and we're talking about all of these new sources of news. And a lot of them are online. I do want to raise something that is very important to me right now, and that is the expiration of the Affordable Connectivity Program, which is fast coming upon us. We have more than 23 million households currently that are getting support to be connected online. And they may lose access to a lot of these things that I've been talking about, to streaming video that provides them the news sources, to some of this media literacy tools that are distributed online, to participation in society. Never mind the fact that it is going to be harmful to our economy if 23 million households suddenly stop getting this support. If millions and millions of households can no longer afford to be connected to the internet, we are going to see harmful downstream effects. We are going to see harmful downstream effects to our efforts to connect everyone to the internet, because our grant dollars are not going to go as far. We're going to see seniors that are not going to be able to do telehealth anymore, which is going to cost our government more money. We're going to see people who can no longer work online, can no longer study online. So this is a significant issue for the United States leadership in the world, and I'm really hopeful that we can see success in these bills that are going to refund the program, even if it's temporary. But let's get that done, because this is, to me, top of mind, the most important thing happening today. Thank you.
And since you brought up, Lynn Stanton, TRL,
Hey, Lynn.
since you brought up ACP, do you have any response to people who argue that unless you can show that the majority or the all or whatever percentage they think it should be of ACP receivers were not having broadband before they got the ACP program, is there any response you want to make to that argument?
Well, the people who are getting it are qualifying according to the law for this support, which means they are households that are having to make tough decisions between whether to pay the food bill, the babysitter bill, the rent, or broadband. We know, actually, I've heard it said, I actually myself haven't had this validated, that about 5 million were completely unconnected before, 5 million households. We also know via studies that a lot of them are also what they call precariously connected. So from month to month, they might be connected, they may not be. So I think that if Congress wants to alter the eligibility rules in some way, certainly that's something to look at, but we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater here. Let's not be penny wise and pound foolish. Let's keep this program going.
Thank you.
Well, let's thank our speaker once again.